Namaste and welcome to the Zensei Podcast. Have you ever struggled cracking the code of how to build your personal brand? One of the toughest things to do as an entrepreneur, solopreneur, or a professional is to figure out how to build your own brand. In my journey from being an employee with some of the best companies out there in the online business space to starting my own yoga venture and later coaching and leadership business, I have had my own share of struggles in learning the importance of personal brand building. Whether you like it or not, whether you're consciously doing it or not, you are still creating your brand in others' minds. Wouldn't it be then a better idea to do it by design, consciously? Today, I have with me a young entrepreneur helping businesses and professionals tell their stories. Meet Pranika. She is the founder of ShyShark, a creative agency and venture studio that blends personal storytelling with sharp brand strategy. She has worked across early stage startups, D2C brands, and nonprofits, often stepping in as the marketing brain before there's even a marketing team. She also built bold, low cost experiments that test what actually moves people online, not just what looks good in decks. Before this, she led brand and content at high growth startups, hired her own teams, and learned the hard way how to build trust through clarity, especially in noisy markets. I hope you will enjoy this conversation and learn a better way to build your brand. Thank you. Hi, Pranika. Welcome to the Zensei podcast. I'm glad to have you here for this very special episode around a field that I'm very interested and passionate about, marketing. And I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much, Hari, for having me. It's a Monday morning. So, just the right kind of Monday morning that I look forward to. Happy to be here. And I hope this is a fruitful discussion for all your viewers.
Great. Let's then dive into it. You show up on LinkedIn as the mommy of marketing. What is this mommy of marketing? How did you come up with that?
I worked for 10 years in the corporate setup, like a typical corporate employee. And I've been doing building brands for other people, other brands, co-founders. And it was a lot of good work. I genuinely enjoy what I do. But in that hustle bustle, what happens is though I knew how to build a personal brand or even a brand which is selling products very well, I wasn't spending any time to build my personal brand, which is something that happens because you forget when you're doing that job, this becomes an additional job and it takes a lot of time and effort. So when I quit my job last year, I had decided that I'll put some amount of time in building my own personal brand because I genuinely believe in practice what you preach. If I'm telling other people they should invest in it, and if I don't personally have a very good standing or positioning online, then it doesn't make sense. So the first thought that came to my head was people are very shy when they want to come and approach personal branding, and people don't want to toot their horn. There's a lot of imposter syndrome at play that comes the moment you want to start talking about your own work and your own self. So I wanted to hit the nail in the head and just be very, very unhinged when it came to naming myself. And I went ahead with the first name that came to my mind, which is Mommy of Marketing. You cannot go more bold and badass than that, hence the name. So that if I can build a brand around this name, and I've gotten a lot of compliments, by the way, a lot of work emails and all have started with that we love your positioning on LinkedIn or on Instagram. So it's always a pleasant conversation to have. And I've used those screenshots in my personal one-on-one coaching sessions that I do for people. And I tell them that do not be shy. If you stand by something, if you genuinely connect with a name or a branding, go all out on it. We keep thinking that we'll be mocked or people will perceive you a certain way. But I believe that the moment you walk into the door, people are going to perceive you a certain way. The way you talk, the way you dress up. People always make a perception based on whatever they think of you. So if you do not brand yourself, somebody else will do it for you. So might as well own that place, own that space, and come across a certain way that you want to be. So it should be in your control rather than leaving it wide open for people to paint you in a certain light.
Great. So thanks for sharing that. Two key words that you used in this entire introduction was one, people need to be bold so that they can own the space of the brand they are building, and the reality of many being also shy. So maybe that's
Yes.
a good way to bring in your ShyShark, the agency that you are building. One thing I noticed when I went to the homepage was about this you telling how it takes guts to build a business. So that boldness
Yes.
comes in your brand. But then why ShyShark? I'm always curious about names, so that's why I'm starting off with this.
No,
Why
no, no.
ShyShark?
That's a very good question. And I was very hesitant, like any founder is whenever you're naming your baby, which is your startup. We had a couple of names, and this was the first name that came while I was ideating. So I ideated with my mentor, who's Cash Guru. I've never said this openly, but this is the first time acknowledging. He was the founder of my first job, the company that I worked at, Prime Focus, and we still stayed in touch after 10 plus years, more like a guardian plus somebody senior who I look up to. So we were ideating names, and this was one of the first names that come up. And I really liked it. Then I was like, no, but it has shy in the first. And I don't know if that will come across, it will be taken well because people in 2025, brands want to be bold, they want to be in your face and all of that. So I let it go. And we ideated about 20 other names, but somewhere it's stuck because it has a lot of stickiness to it. And again, I think I'm happy, very happy with the choice. 1 year, we are about to complete a year in a couple of months, and I'm very, very happy because this has been a conversation starter. People have asked me, why is it so and so? A couple of reasons I went back and we selected this name was one, I think it resonates with me personally because I come across a certain way. So while it is a shark, it's a shy shark because while I may not be sharp, a lot of our approach to work is also, though we believe in being bold, though we believe in being as unhinged as you can be as a campaign that you're running to sell your product or to promote your brand, you have to be subtle. There has to be a human element to it. You cannot just go about banging your product or your stories again and again and again to the consumers across platforms, because what happens is every other brand is doing that. If you're not authentic to who you are or what you are as a brand, your vision, your storytelling, and you're not connecting with your audience, it will never work out. So when we discuss more case studies or when we discuss more work that we've done as ShyShark and even before in my corporate life, I'll tell you live examples where some of the best campaigns have bombed because the human insight was missing. Or a lot of Excel sheets that, you'll be deciding, decoding why is one ad campaign working, why is not one campaign not working. More than quantitative, it's qualitative analysis that really moves the needle or that really makes you understand there's a lot beneath the surface. It may not, you may not be able to connect the dots at get go. So there are no straight answers, which is why the word shy, because it's subtle, it's under the surface, but it's very, very powerful. And though you may not be able to look at it on the surface, and like, have you seen how a shark looks? The fin is, that's a symbol also that you have the fin and it's coming out of the water. So you don't see it approaching, but but it's very strong, it's very powerful, and it's a very mighty creature. So it has everything, but below the surface. So hence, it was a very nuanced name and something that visually also looked nice. So we went ahead with it. And I think because ShyShark has two parts of the business, one is agency and one is coaching. Coaching is one-on-one personal branding, like a DIY that people can do, solo founders, creators, and professionals. And agency is a typical agency business that you have. So we call ourselves a venture lab plus a creative studio,
Wonderful.
which is there in India, but it's not that commonly done. Hence the name.
That's a interesting take. As you were speaking, what I got in touch with was there's this one newsletter I follow called The Quiet Rich on Substack. Okay. I think I've come across this idea of in brand building. One is, of course, you have to have a brand name that captures the essence and the quality of what you represent. But there's also a way you bring in more authenticity by really acknowledging the possible shadow or the something that is vulnerable and weak, and really owning that space up also. So a lot of these apparently paradoxical words make up very good brand names because it brings in a lot of genuinity and authenticity to the person, owning up both the what could be perceived as a vulnerability plus also the real strength that they bring in. And I think that's a really refreshing take. So as you said, I really agree that it does have a stickiness to it. So and that's a very big factor.
But beautifully put, Hariprasad. I'll use that in the future, what you just said. I genuinely liked it.
Thank you. I'm primarily interested in this conversation also because I work in a field which is a intersection of well-being, leadership, and indic wisdom. And one of the things I've noticed, because I have transitioned from a background in marketing, earlier working with Google and Amazon, to the space, but the space as such, the space of healing, therapy, or this kind of work is also having a lot of solopreneurs and professionals who are often at a dilemma about should we really show up and build a brand of our own? Would it be antithetical to this? Because it's a healing space, no? Or even coaching for that matter. You're helping somebody in a moment of vulnerability. So I have come across a lot of professionals in my personal coaching as a coach where there's a lot of reconciliation one needs to do on really feeling that sense of what you say, the boldness to build their own brand, because that is also very essential. Now, how do you really build a brand that is authentic, but maybe it's not self-obsessed? Is there any principle one can look out for?
I'll answer this in two parts: therapy, healing work, and that kind of space of work. I completely understand why it can feel a little out of the place to promote yourself or talk about your cases. I completely understand that. And I'm sure there are other spaces of work where people feel that even more. I have a very close friend, and though not a professional client, I have helped her establish. She's a doctor, and she has about 10,000 followers on Instagram right now as we speak, and growing. And she does mostly organic content. I discuss content strategy with her. And I'll tell you from personal experience, it's very beneficial, not just for the doctor, like my friend, the one who makes content, but also her followers. When you start doing content like that, no, you'll understand that uh, there is somebody who doesn't know whether they should go for XYZ, whether they should even consider. I'm taking my friend's example right now, treatment or what kind of supplements to take or whatever. It's not like they'll blindly follow my friend just because they're following her. But following her a lot of times helps people be more proactive towards their health. Every time they see her reel, they remember that my parents also have a knee problem, for example, or a gut health issue, maybe. And every time they see it, they remember and they will check on their parents. It's not as simple as, even if she's recommending that eat this, do that, even if they're not following the reel, as if there's a lot of other not directly related impact that your work will have. She shows me her DMs and the kind of questions, and something very offhand will come out of the reel that she's posted. So there's a lot of indirect correlation also that happens when you follow a healer or a doctor or somebody in the health industry. It has a multifold impact. Sometimes you don't even realize you're helping somebody by doing a reel on X topic, and it's impacting them in a positive way. So I would really, really encourage people in your field or even in medical or health professions, because it does help. I have always seen a positive uptake from personal and professional experiences both. I have hardly seen anybody be trolled or be said that they're not being ethical. I'll tie it back to my own experience when we were discussing Mommy of Marketing. I wanted to talk to my own self when I was a 20-year-old or a 25-year-old, because that is the time when you can make maximum of social media. You can actually be very, very unapologetic and post whatever kind of content you want, which maybe at a 30 plus, you'll have to think 20 times because you'll be higher up the food chain and you cannot do stuff like that. Similarly, when you're making content, be it any field, you're not making it for yourself. You're not even making it for your own community. You're making it for the larger audience. It will be somebody who's maybe starting out in the journey of healing. And what you take for granted or what anybody does, it could be your one reel or your one casual post could open somebody's eyes or could, get them started onto the right path. So you never know. Anything could be a trigger in a good way. I think I'll just talk about top 5 things that people face when they're trying to build their personal brand. And one of them, the biggest one, is that I don't want to sound self obsessed or narcissistic. There was this post on Twitter somebody had done, and it read that people who like their own post are the saddest kind of people, or something on those lines. I very strongly disagree. I think you should go ahead and like. You obviously can't like it more than once because then it unlikes. But if there was that option, I would have done that. You should shamelessly do that, because I tell founders this, I tell brands who are running like crores of campaigns that please talk about your own stuff, because if you won't, then why should anybody else care? If I'm recommending that to a brand which has lots of money, why as a solopreneur or an individual or even a college student, why would you not talk about yourself? If you don't care about yourself, who else will? So that's the biggest myth I think that is there. Then a lot of people will talk about, I have no idea what to post. Even if I worked for 10 years, I still don't know, because you feel like you're still not an expert. You'll never be an expert. Learning is a never ending journey. You always feel you know less, but there's always somebody who knows lesser than you. So I tell people, even if you're a fresh college student, you can talk about things. If you learn something 10 years down the line, if you believe differently, do a post on that, do content around that, that how I evolved from believing in X and now I believe in something else. So that is the second one. The third one is again something that I get in a lot of my calls, which is what if I come across as cringe? And that is the biggest pet peeve. And it is more for people like us, like people who are very well read and they have gone to like most premium colleges. They're more worried about how they're coming across because they have a circle who will look them up and maybe they're afraid of getting mocked, roughly put. But with visibility will come a lot of feedback. Some will be negative as well. A lot of times people will just praise you because they know you and they may not actually like your work, which is okay. If you do not have haters, I believe you're doing something wrong because you're doing very vanilla content then. So having haters is a very good thing. In fact, the biggest sign of growth, even for a brand, I keep telling people, the moment you have your first hate comment is a very good sign. If you're not getting any kind of hate, that means you're not growing. But people run away from hate because they don't want to stand for something, which is not good. The moment you get your first hate comment, they're like, okay, you've achieved one metric, that somebody hates your content. Then the second one is that my story isn't that interesting because people are obsessed with those kind of content, where it's either a very dark sob story and then growth story. People think that, oh, my story won't be that impactful, but you'll be surprised. Very normal content, no? Or very normal instances, like a slice of life content does very, very well. And people want to relate. How many people will relate to a story which only one in 100 people goes through? But something that's more relatable is something which is very common, like making chai in the evening. If done beautifully, it can also connect with far larger audiences than something we usually think will work. And you don't have to deliberately make something emotional or something very a certain way to connect with people. And then the last one is I'm multi passionate. And how do I pick one thing that I talk about? Basically, a niche. Again, I tell people the best way to do is just get started because I've seen so many people, they'll spend months just figuring out their niche. I do not think that works. Just start creating content or start posting or start talking, whatever is the platform or content format you're comfortable with. Ultimately, whatever you're more comfortable with and whatever is working, people will tell you, you yourself will also realize, but just start. Just because you're using that as an excuse to not start, which is a bigger problem. That I do personal branding along with branding for bigger brands. Founder who will keep waiting instead of experimenting will always start late. Whereas a founder who will start from get go, even when they have less knowledge, no, they'll be like, let's do it, let's experiment. Times at least we know it doesn't work. That kind of attitude is even better in a startup world. Similarly, in personal branding, also, it's the same thing. You would have done 100 failed experiments, you'll know way more than somebody who's just doing R&D for 6 months and not going anywhere. So those are the five big ones that I get in most of my sessions, and they're very easy turnarounds. Yeah. For these.
What you outlined is very beautiful because it touches upon very diverse elements, starting from our own inertia to take the first step to also getting over the inner critical voice, which may not always be our own voice also, like, because it's a sometimes what at the start of my journey may look like a self obsession might be a mix of other people's criticism and judgments, not actually a self obsession. But as we work through and show up more for our own brand, we might sense that this is the level of tonality or this is the level of flamboyance I like to build my brand around. My favorite in the marketing world is Seth Godin. And one of the things he really proposes, which I resonate with, is how am I serving people who are looking out for my kind of product or service? I hear that resonance in what you're sharing. When you create content about what you do, you are also helping the audience know this is why we should perhaps reach out to you. I also wanted to touch upon another thing. How much do you feel is this dilemma or resistance to brand building a product of our cultural nuances or cultural norms? I have seen that in US or Europe, there's a little more ease in showing up for what you stand for and sharing versus in India. Maybe it's a geographical thing. Maybe there is also an element of different fields being different. Like I'm coming from a yoga coaching field. There within yoga, it is sometimes even looked down upon. Oh, you're building your brand. What are you doing? People should really find you, discover you, and come to you. Mm-hmm. But in the new world, how much do you see these cultural norms also playing into creating a block in creating a brand? What's your thought?
I'm glad you asked me that because I think that's the first time somebody has put that nuance about being out of a specific geography and how the cultural norms affect it. And they do. Because there's that phrase, no, that everybody has heard, log kya kahenge, is so deeply ingrained. I used to think it's just a sentence, but no, I have also faced that, by the way, having launched ShyShark and Mommy of Marketing. We'll have to do a separate session to talk about it. But coming back, there's this fear that, wo char log that nobody knows about. It could be your boss, it could be your ex-colleague, it could be your own family, your relatives. People talk a lot, people have a lot of spare time. And because I think it comes from the reason is also because we are a very close-knit families. We have more close-knit relations, interpersonal relations in India, which is good. Every good has a bad side also because everybody will have a comment, and sometimes those comments, they're looking out for you.
Mm.
But when you're trying to build something of your own, could be a startup, could be your personal brand, it can chip away at your confidence because they don't know what you're doing. You have a vision, maybe they do not relate to it, maybe they're just scared for you, they're just projecting their own thoughts. There are two kinds of people we'll have in our coaching sessions also, by the way. And this one of my students only did. She was a girl, and what she did was, when she started, she was making her own account. She sells something like a product from her own house. It's an MSME. It's a very small business, one person run business. And she blogged her entire family and relatives before she started posting content because she was like, yeah, I'm worried. How will I be taken? And how will the perception be? So I've seen people go very ballistic also. They'll be like, no, I'll start on a clean slate so that I'm not performing for anybody and I can be authentic to myself. And it worked for her. She
Right.
grew her business. She's right now listed on Myntra and Nykaa both. So it works for people. There are some people who are unapologetic
Mm.
and they will make content irrespective, like who's saying what, it doesn't matter. So to each his own, everybody has their own journey, but it does impact.
Yeah.
I will not say that it doesn't. And in India only, you're absolutely correct. And it can impact a lot.
Yeah.
It will have a lot of impact on the kind of content you're doing, what you're doing, how soon you're quitting. I've seen people quit also.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, a lot of people will say you're saying the same thing that, what a Raj Shamani is saying or what a Beer Biceps is saying or anybody. There'll be some content creator. No, there's no new content. Storytelling also, people don't understand that. I think we were shooting with Kamal Hassan for one documentary at the start of my career. And I still remember that line he said that it's the same story being told over and over across ages, which is so true because ultimately there's no new story. It is the same story, one portion of it, or maybe the last portion of it, but it's ultimately the same story. So that is never going to change. We come and go, there'll be new people coming. The story is going to remain the same. So it doesn't matter. So for you and me also, it doesn't matter. It will be the same story. And the third thing was, a lot of people, I think we briefly spoke about it. It was about feeling like a fraud, that imposter syndrome, that you feel like you're not being yourself and you're performing in front of the camera. I would just like to quote one research which was done, and it was that the moment, even in documentary settings, like people have done very big researches and for months they have spent learning that the moment a camera goes on, you're not yourself. Even if you're saying the truth, you start performing. If you know that there's a camera, until it's a hidden camera, which I don't think people are using. So that feeling of performance will always come, and everybody wants to be ready, like I said, before they come in front of the camera, and that can also delay your progress or fake your entire being. So those kind of problems do happen, but I think there are workarounds for all of them.
The point you mentioned about the imposter syndrome. Okay.
Yes.
So there, what I feel is there are two elements to it. Now, one is about our own confidence of, do I know enough? Okay. Like I said, of course, there is some content creator somewhere creating more informative, interesting topic of the same. What I'm hearing you say is you just start. The other
Yes.
part is about this idea of authenticity. The way you hold that idea can enable you or make you feel stuck in brand building. When you speak of ShyShark, there is that subtlety to it, and there is also the boldness. Now, if on one day you don't feel bold enough, still the expectation from the brand for the audience will be to show up as a bold person or for the voice of the brand to be consistent. So oftentimes there is a performative element. How have you seen you balance this need for consistency of
Hmm.
showing up in a certain way versus your own authentic self?
So, uh, Like I said in the beginning, that I'd been building brands for Unicorn, for other people for so long, and I know it like the back of my hand. But the moment it came to building my own brand and all that gyan I would give other people that, imposter syndrome is nothing, be platform agnostic, all of that, you can be the most difficult student you have. Building a brand for myself was a pain because suddenly nothing felt good enough. Everything was too loud or too soft or too out of touch. And everything changes, right? Suddenly it's different. So I feel that the moment it's you are creating something, could be a personal brand, could be a startup. Suddenly, all the rules change. Even if you know you've read 200 books, you know what is to be done, you will still question every minor decision, everything that you stand for, because now it is you. It is not a third person. So while I created brands for other people, the moment it came to me, everything changed and I was stuck trying to convince myself of things that I had only sold to other people. So that happens. I think that's a journey that you go through. There's no two ways about it. And you find a middle ground slowly. Then I also went through, despite saying all of this, that I was achieving polished perfection, as I call it. That is also something that you'll go through, I think, as somebody who's building a brand for themselves. You will try to do XYZ, you will try to emulate competitors. But I think that's also a phase that you go through because the easiest way to start is also if you like somebody's content. I'm not saying copy them, but take inspiration and at least start making stuff because ultimately I believe that if you're creating it on your own and not just copy pasting, you will use your own personal insights or your personal design sensibilities and it will become your own thing as you keep doing it over time. So that is also a way to go about it. And later you'll realize that something that you create from scratch on your own will do far better. And I've tested that, by the way. In the first 3 months, I was doing video content a lot and I was doing reels. My most viral reel till date is something that I had written just like that and I shot it in my hall. I think I shot it here only, where I'm sitting right now, and that did very well. And I've done a lot of those typical capsule format content. They've not done that well. So I think authenticity sells no matter what you say, and it will come. You just get into the habit of doing something daily. The more you do it, I think the better you get. There was this book I was reading in which they did an experiment. It was a social experiment in which they made two batches of students, so 100 each. One batch was told that it was a pottery class, and they were told that you're supposed to make just one pot, but the perfect pot that you can make. Just submit one pot. And they all went and they were making it. And the other group was told that you're supposed to make 200 pots back to back. So at the end of whatever 1 week or something, they should have 200 pots. So both the classes, groups of people made it and guessed which one had the best looking pot or which one was better at their work. The one making 200 pots. Because even if they were just blindly making it, they were getting better each time because they were doing the said activity 200 times. So they automatically got better because they were doing the same thing over and over and over again, though they were running after a quantity. Yeah. And the people who were spending all their time to get that one perfect pot did not have the perfect pot because they were so obsessed with getting it right. So that happens. And there were multiple case studies like that. It's like a whole chapter. I've whittled it down into one line, but that happens. So consistency, like you said, doing it over and over and over again will get you better at a job, be it any job.
I do admire the consistency with which you create your LinkedIn post, for example, on the videos and all. Like maybe I can take the next few minutes to take your very instant takes on some real brand building challenges for people. So first one I would start with is for most people, part of brand building is also this entire question of pricing. For solopreneurs, consultants, coaches, yoga teachers, part of the need for brand building comes from I really don't know how to price myself. And a lot of pricing is a function of your brand in a way. All other variables remaining the same. These are some principles I'm drawing inspiration from Seth Godin's This Is Marketing book. This aphorism is called Price is a Story. What is your take on this? How do you look at pricing when it comes to brand building?
Interesting question. This is from 2018 US. There's a brand called Payless. It's like Mishu shoes. They have very cheap shoes, like $20 and all. What they did was a social experiment, and I love it. I think every brand marketer loves it. They went ahead and in a very fancy mall, they did a very minimal showroom, think a Gucci or a Prada, that kind of a showroom. And they did a very massive launch and they named this brand Felici or something. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. So it was Payless only, just spelled differently. And the logo was redone, everything was redone to make it look premium and luxury. They sold the same goods at marked up prices for $6,000 or something. They were selling those shoes and they launched it to influencers and they did like a massive, this thing like limited stocks and all of that. And they did it. They sold out every pair of shoe at marked up prices and people bought it. They were influencers saying, yeah, this is so good. This is like the best, next big thing and all. And after that, later they revealed that, it was done by Payless and those shoes are very normal. It was a very big case study later, but then when it was happening, nobody knew that it's a normal brand. And basically, what it underlined was that you're getting such good shoes at cheaper prices that even luxury influencers couldn't make out the difference. So there you go. That is what branding does. What it does underline is how important is branding and positioning because the way your logo is designed, how your in-store experience, on-ground experiences, how you're communicating with your audience, how the whole look and feel is, it does impact pricing. Because if you're targeting premium customers or luxury customers, then you have to look and sound a certain way. Similarly, if you're a mass product or if you're a product which is only targeted at Gen Z or only targeted retired people, you do need to talk like your audience and sound like your audience. So branding and positioning is very deeply tied to how much you're pricing your products as. I don't think it's as abstract as just getting an Excel sheet together and putting whatever on on a piece of paper. Like I said, I believe, and it's not just because of my background. Maybe it is. I don't come from a typical MBA background. I went to a film school, for example. I studied literature. Then I started with production. Video content is something I'm very good at because I used to work on the other side of the table. I've pivoted thrice in my own career, and which is why I understand how nuanced this is, a customer journey, as well as what is making you have that purchase decision. I believe that to understand your actual impact of any campaign or any thing that you're running, you should do post purchase surveys. For example, if somebody is buying a product from you, ask them what was the tipping point, what made them buy. A lot of people won't answer, some will, but that is gold because, numbers can lie, rupees won't. I think sales is the best metric to figure out if a campaign was a success or not. And I think it should be the only metric.
The it is a story. That's what at the end of the day I'm hearing you say. If it's pricing is a story has to be created. And
Yes.
if you don't tell your story, others will imagine stories. So it's up to create our own story. The second thing
Yes.
I wanted to also touch upon here is about the idea called the smallest viable audience. When we start a new venture, because of the context we are in, where all the limelight is taken by big companies that scale up rapidly,
Mm.
everything, there's a very natural pull for most people to get into how much scale can I build. But there's also this contrarian idea of small is beautiful, where you can also create something really boutique, really niche, and be a category of one kind of a thing. So, how do you look at this idea of scale and how do you hold the idea of really discovering what is my smallest viable audience for my brand?
I genuinely do believe that scaling is very important, and I don't think volume is always a good signifier of scale. A lot of brands, like if you look at Bliss Club or even Zivame, for example, they started with one or two products or very niche, a limited number of SKUs. And that is what they scale with. Eventually, they add more and more products. I think that is a easier and more sustainable way to do it. I've seen brands with hundreds of SKUs and only selling 10 regularly. And a lot of times during our consultations, we recommend people to scale down. That's very, uh, how would I say, number heavy example I'm giving. It's easier to build love than reach. For example, I'm forgetting the name of the brand. There was this brand which was for intimate wear for women, which I think Kusha Kapila was promoting recently on Instagram, and it went viral. And every marketer, I think, did a post on it about how some were praising it, okay, they've done something very different, and some were saying that it's the same old thing. People have done it hundreds of times. Yes, people have done it hundreds of times. Nobody had done it for that segment.
Okay.
And did it have the kind of reach and impact that it did? Yes, it did. I went and because everybody was talking about it, and I looked up that content. They had done it beautifully because that is a section where conversational or storytelling content around what kind of, for example, undergarments are you wearing under a certain kind of clothes in a storytelling format hasn't been done. Maybe as an educational video, you'll find it, but not like, somebody in a friendly way is telling you. And they did a whole series. There was research behind it. For that particular TG, nobody had cracked it, and which is why it went viral and which is why it started conversations. And again, now will you call it successful? For me, I think it was. People had different kind of opinions. You decide as a brand owner what does scale mean for you, what does profitability mean for you, and what are the growth metrics you're looking at in a given amount of time. Virality cannot be predicted, nor can it be manufactured. Do you want to be seen by those many people? Are you even ready? So looking at scale like that too, like will you be able to take on that kind of load? Sometimes people are not really prepared. They're not even thinking long term. Like sustainability is something that I would recommend anybody to vie for, not just scalability.
I'm hearing two things. One is the idea can grow and scale in a certain way. Like the example you shared about that campaign, a new target group, a new kind of storytelling, and it went and reached many people. So there is one level of scaling that one can achieve through spreading of an idea. There's also the tactical aspect of what does my brand stand for. So for example, there are these restaurants who will at any point take in only 20 people. Like when I do a retreat, I have a cap of 15. Now the idea of the retreat might reach thousands, but ultimately if more than 15 is interested, they will not be part of the retreat. That is the cap. So there is a tactical idea of what can create the best possible experience for my kind of a brand versus the messaging. So when we speak of the smallest viable audience, it's also the idea of knowing and defining who are the people who like my vibe. How did you go about defining who is your smallest viable audience? For ShyShark, I was absolutely clear from the get go. It's a creative agency plus a venture lab. The target audience would mostly be startup founders, CXOs, brand managers, where we are helping a brand grow and scale based on wherever they're lagging. We come in, we do strategy for them, and then we take it from there. So it's not a same approach for every brand. Every brand will have very, very different strategy depending on what requirements they have, what gaps they have, and we feel. We come in and plug it. So it's a plug and play model. SharkBite sessions that we launched because there was a need in the market. What we realized is while ShyShark agency business was for bigger established startups, there were lots of requirements from very small MSMEs who do not have such deep pockets, but they want something done by somebody who's experienced and they don't have a lot of money to spend, but they still want to start right. They want to invest some amount of time and money and rather get a professional who's done her shit for 10 years and help them guide, which is why I launched SharkBite and the response has been good. So it comes from being aware of the kind of reaction you're getting to whatever content you're posting. I was getting DMs from founders, creators, people who wanted to grow their brand, and which is why we built what we built. That's a very good practice for anybody who's listening to this also to start sensing into what does my brand feel like, who is really reaching out to me organically, and then start responding also in that tonality so that it grows into a niche of its own. Maybe you can share about what happens in SharkBite session. We practically reverse engineered SharkBite from the kind of requests that we are getting. So what happens in that is if you're a founder or you're a creator or anybody who's building their brand and you reach out to us, you share whatever platforms you're available on. If it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever, you share that with us. You share a brief overview of what you want to achieve and what are your bottlenecks as per you. And then you leave it. You book a session with us. It's a 1 hour session. We do our homework. We come prepared on the call and we break it down for you that these are your levers which you should be using. Maybe just stick to 2 platforms because growing on all 4, given the budgets, if you don't have budgets, we are also explicitly open about how much team you have. If you're a one-man show, which is fine, just be absolutely honest and we'll tell you the best way to milk your marketing levers and get the most for your business or your personal brand. That is what we do. It's a 1 hour deep dive. We break it down properly for you. We'll handhold any kind of questions. We tell people also that even if it sounds stupid, ask it. Nobody's to judge because sometimes the stupid question is actually not a stupid question. It's very insightful and that has helped people define and get clearer about their brand strategy. So that is what we help do. We've had clients who were solopreneurs, so there would be nobody else on call. Me and 1 or 2 colleagues are fine, depending on what kind of insights we need for that particular business. I get them. Like I say, it's a plug and play model. I see.
So it's different for different brands or different people. Sometimes we've also had brands who've gotten their social media head or like content head or marketing head on the call because they thought it was needed. So it's like a collective brainstorm of sorts for 1 hour. After that, we are obviously aligned on a couple of things. Ultimately, the sign off should be the founders because
Okay.
they have to run the business, they have to run the show. Is their baby. They should be comfortable doing it. We always give our opinion. Mostly, it's a collaborative process. And then what we promise to deliver in the next 2 days, we usually give it in 24 hours, is a mini brand direction kit, which we put it together for them based on our understandings from the call and the research that we have done before. And we've gotten very good responses. People have loved our mini brand direction kit. A lot of them have joined us as full time retention based clients. So it's been good.
Hmm.
The kind of questions that you're getting, interaction that you're getting organically will tell you the direction you should take.
Okay. Beautiful. As we close on this conversation, you can also share how can people reach out to you if they are interested in building their brand or maybe even taking that SharkBite session. What's the best way to reach you?
I'm very socially active. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is PS Pranika. It's very unique, so I don't think it'll be very difficult to look it up. On Instagram, I go with Mommy of Marketing. Again, a very easy to look up name. So if you are a founder or a creator or a professional, anybody who wants to build their brand and the MVP model, the most least amount of cost, maximum value that you'll get in 1 hour for your brand is what SharkBite offers. And hope it helps anybody to grow and scale in their business.
Wonderful. I will definitely put these links in the description of the podcast for anybody to find you. And thank you, Pranika. It has been a lovely conversation, a lot of rich, different threads of topics that we explored. And perhaps we can also pick up more specific topics and deep dive to build on this conversation in the future. All the best building ShyShark and helping more businesses and brands grow well.
Thank you so much, Hari, and thank you so much for having me. This was a beautiful conversation for me as well. And wishing you luck with the podcast and the kind of work that you do. People should look up Hari as well after this podcast. I love reading the posts that you do on LinkedIn, which deep dives into the kind of sessions and workshops you do. I would love to come to one of those if one's happening in Delhi anytime soon.
Okay. Thank you so much. Have a good day.